The setting of your book is an invitation to immerse readers into your book. But how do you actually do that? In this video, I'm going to break down 8 tips to help you create really vibrant scenes and settings that bring your reader closer to your story. Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm your book coach and developmental editor, and I help women unapologetically write, edit, and publish their books to inspire and create positive impact in this world. And if you are writing a book, you could be writing a novel, a memoir, or short story, the setting or the scenes that you are immersing readers in are really important because it's ultimately setting the stage for what they are going to experience and feel as they are reading your story. So a well-crafted setting is a living, breathing thing. It's not just like a backdrop like we used to have in our school plays growing up that was stagnant and didn't move. This is really a dynamic force that you can incorporate into your stories that really captivate your readers and evokes emotion that keeps them reading. So having a really well-developed setting can actually create more of a vivid experience for your reader, and it can make it more memorable. So let's take a look at 8 different ways that you can think about creating very vibrant and immersive settings. So the first is to really engage the senses. So what are we hearing? What are we seeing? What are we smelling? What are we tasting? What are we feeling? Help us understand where we are and drop us in as the reader as if we are there. So just like if we were to walk into a coffee shop, we're gonna smell coffee. We're gonna hear coffee beans being ground. We're gonna feel the counter as we're ordering. Maybe we're feeling, the granola bars or things by the grocery or by the checkout stand that we are considering buying. There's many different ways that you can make this very tactile and interactive. So maybe your book or your scene is taking place in a bar and there's flickering lights or there's slick pavement outside in the parking lot. How can you help set the stage for where we are, what we're experiencing through our senses? So as you are creating your setting or your scene, think about how are your characters, your main character, and the readers using all 5 senses in that scene and setting. So the second way to really immerse your readers is to show the setting through action. So instead of relying on really long descriptions, weave in the setting details into the action that your characters are taking. So if your character is in this bustling cafe, then let them brush the crumbs off their shoulders. Maybe they are warming their hands on the ceramic cup, or maybe they're struggling to hear a conversation, or maybe they're eavesdropping on the people next to them. These moments can be naturally integrated into the movement of your story so that you can help describe the setting without having to sit there and tell us, well, we're in a cafe and this is what it sounds like, this is what it tastes like, this is what it feels like. Incorporate how your character is moving through that scene and use their actions to help us understand what the setting looks, feels, tastes, smells like. So the third tip is to really use atmosphere to help set the mood. So you can help use your setting to set the mood for what we should be feeling. So if it's a really bright, sunny, amazing day, then maybe your character's having a really good day. Or if it's a dark and stormy and the wind's howling outside, that gives us a little bit of like, ooh, I'm on edge. Like, is there something bad gonna happen? So you can use your atmosphere to help set the mood. And you see this done all the time in movies. There's often light, bright white lights when it's really nice out or something good's happening, or there's kind of this dark feeling when we're not feeling quite great. There's a lot of horror movies and suspense that happens at night, right? So there's that cover of the darkness where things are not going so well. So really consider how the weather or the lighting or even the architecture can help set the mood. So it can be helpful to really understand what is the mood you're trying to convey through your setting before you write your scene. So if you're looking for more optimistic, then you might be a beautiful garden. If you are going for that level of suspense, maybe it is evening and it's foggy and there's this sense of you can't see everything around you. So before you write your scene, think about what is the emotional weight of that scene and how can your setting then also help to amplify or reflect that. Which leads me to my 4th tip, which is all about reflecting the character's emotions. So as you're going into your scene, what are the emotions that your main character and other supporting characters are going to be feeling in your next scene or chapter? So a childhood home for one character might be a very cozy, warming, amazing place, where for another, it is some place that they have avoided or feel extremely uncomfortable being in. So your shift in environment can also change through which the lens of the character, how they are observing it, and what their relationship is to the setting around them. So the 5th tip is to make locations feel really unique. So I know it can be very common to have books or movies or TV shows that are kind of set in a small town. And if you've watched any of those series, you all know there's a square and there's a gazebo in the middle, which is not untrue to real life, but how can you make it extra unique? What is it about the local diner that is so unique? What is it about the roads that lead into the town? What is it about maybe the special things that they produce there? Are there orchards? Are there dairy farms? Are there, candy that's made there? What is it that makes that location super unique? So you can hone in on those details rather than just describing any generic small town that could be the setting of your book. So the more you can dive into the specifics, the more you can create a world that feels very alive and very unique to your story. So the next tip is to make sure that you are not info dumping. So we talked about how you don't need really long, lengthy descriptions to convey your setting and make sure that we know where we are and have a sense of time and place. But you really want to consider your pacing. So the more description you put in, the more you are slowing down the pacing of your story, and we're gathering information as a reader as to where we are. So while there are times you do want to slow down your pacing, just make sure you're not info dumping every last detail, including the ants on the sidewalk, unless they are important to your setting. You want to make sure that you're giving just enough information that we feel immersed without giving us all the information that we actually don't need to feel immersed. And so there's a little bit of a balance that can be hard. So it might be helpful just to write out all the descriptions that you want to have there and then pick and choose which are the ones that ultimately convey that feeling and the emotion of your characters, and that can be what ends up in your final manuscript. So again, we want to make sure that we are picking the right times to slow down the reader and then also to when we want to speed up. And by describing your setting in too much detail, you are slowing down and taking the reader actually out of the story, because now they're like, I don't know why I need to know all these details about the paint color and how many ants are crawling on the sidewalk. We really want to make sure that we're immersing and focusing on those 5 senses as much as possible and just giving enough so we really understand where we are and the emotions being conveyed. So the next step is to research for authenticity. So if you are writing historical fiction or even sci-fi, you want to make sure that the rules of your world or the rules of the era you're writing about are very clear. So we don't want to have certain things that feel really out of place and then take us out of the setting completely. So if you're writing historical fiction, we don't need someone walking around in the 1920s on a cell phone. So you want to make sure that your worlds feel consistent and they are believable. So this can be done from researching locations or architecture or certain customs, cultural norms at that time. And that can really give a lot more credibility and depth to your story. So the 8th and final tip is to create a sense of time. So setting isn't just about the place and what we're smelling, it's also about that time that we are in. Literally the time of day, literally the year. So as I mentioned in the previous tip, if you're doing research because your book is set in a previous era, you want to make sure that you are being very accurate to that time frame. Again, we don't want someone from the 1920s walking around on a cell phone. That's a big disconnect and lends, readers to just walk away and be like, that's not a credible book. So really think about what is the technology, what is the way that people are speaking, what is the clothing they're wearing, and really use all of that as ways to establish your setting so that as people come in, maybe they are touching certain items, or the way they move about rooms and stores and locations is very different to maybe how we do nowadays. Bringing your story to life really leans on more than just your main characters and what's going to happen in your plot. It's about how can you use your setting to immerse your readers and reflect some of the moods and emotions and create some tension without having to directly say that through the characters. So by engaging all the senses, incorporating action, making locations feel very dynamic and specific, you can really create a world that lingers in a reader's mind and they can visualize it and they can feel as if they are there. So again, setting is an invitation for your readers to really feel like they are a part of the story. So if you like these tips, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out my new Crafting Your Novel course that is going to go into the 8 essential tips to help you write a novel. Scene and setting have each of their own modules. This is a great way to dive in and make sure you're hitting all of these marks and creating a novel that everybody wants to read and is a page turner, and reduces the amount of time that you have to spend editing multiple drafts, because this course ultimately gives you everything you need to know in order to write a really powerful book. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time in the next video.